He had everything except the sound of his own life. Imagine a glass skyscraper reflecting the sunset in cool golden hues. On the top floor, a spacious minimalist room with a dark wood table so polished it looks like a mirror. Men in suits move about, mouths opening and closing, hands gesturing urgently. And in the center, seated in the main chair, is him, billionaire, visionary, untouchable, and completely silent. It's not a metaphor, it's biology. For decades, his world was silent, and the human brain, when deprived of sound for so long, begins to reorganize itself. Neuroscience calls this neural plasticity. Areas responsible for hearing are invaded by other senses. Vision becomes sharper. Reading expressions becomes almost supernatural. He learned to identify lies by the slightest movement of a facial muscle. He learned to perceive insecurity in the way someone held a pen. But there is an invisible price to pay when the brain adapts too much. Because sound isn't just noise. It's connection. It's belonging. It's what regulates deep emotions in the limbic system, what activates memories, what triggers oxytocin when someone whispers, "I'm here." He never heard that. He never heard his own mother calling his name from the kitchen. He never heard his father say he was proud of him. And, ironically, it was precisely this emptiness that turned him into a machine. He worked 16 hours a day. He read contracts like someone deciphering war secrets. While other businessmen were distracted by praise or criticism, he was immune. Silence shielded him. No cruel word affected him. No rumor destabilized him. He didn't hear applause, but he also didn't hear betrayals. Or at least, that's what she believed. There's something disturbingly powerful about someone who doesn't listen. People relax. They talk too much. They underestimate. At lavish dinners, amidst crystal glasses and exaggerated laughter, many commented on him as if he were a statue in the room. He really doesn't understand. It's easier to negotiate this way. He depends on us. Depends, he observed. He always observed. And the more the world believed he was isolated, the more he learned about human nature, about ambition, about envy, about social masks. There's a psychological phenomenon called social disinhibition. When we believe we're not being fully perceived, we reveal who we really are. And around him, the masks frequently slipped. But there was a cruel irony in all of this, because while he dominated global markets, there were times when luxury felt like a padded room. No echo, no vibration, no life. The helicopter landed on the rooftop. The city stretched below like an ocean of lights. And yet, nothing. No distant honking, no urban murmur. Just his own heartbeat felt in his chest. Not heard, just felt, like a muffled drum inside his body. Have you ever thought about what absolute silence does to the mind over the years? Studies show that prolonged absence of auditory stimuli can intensify internal thoughts. The brain begins to amplify memories, insecurities, and imaginary scenarios. External silence becomes internal noise. And sometimes, that noise is deafening. He lost his father in a hospital that was too white, too brightly lit. He saw his lips move for the last time. He doesn't know what words were spoken. This doubt has haunted him for decades. Did he say goodbye? Did he try to say something important? This is the kind of question that never finds rest. And perhaps it was there that something began to crack. Because money buys technology, it buys doctors, it buys attempts, but it doesn't buy the past. Even so, years later, when he was already at the top of the list of the richest men in the country, a proposal reached him. Discreet, experimental, a procedure capable of partially restoring hearing in cases considered irreversible. It wasn't a guarantee, it was a risk. The surgeon explained that his brain would have to relearn how to hear, that it could be confusing, painful. That simple sounds could seem aggressive at first, that the mind, accustomed to silence, could react with anxiety, irritation, even rejection. But there was one sentence that hung in the air. Sometimes what's most frightening isn't hearing it again, it's discovering what's been said all this time. He didn't tell his family, he didn't tell his partners. He kept everything a complete secret, as if he were planning a billion-dollar acquisition. Only this time, the company was the mastermind behind it. And here's the detail that almost no one knew. In the last few months, even before the surgery, he began to notice something different in the looks of the people around him. Small changes in expression when they thought he wasn't looking. Smiles that lasted half a second longer. Conversations interrupted when he entered the room. Coincidence? Or has it always been this way? And he just never wanted to see it? There is a cognitive bias called confirmation bias. We tend to perceive only what supports the reality we want to believe. Perhaps it was too comfortable to think that silence was protection, that not listening was a strategic advantage, that isolation was a choice, not a consequence. But the night before the surgery, alone in his penthouse, he stood by the open window. The city vibrated outside. He knew it, even without hearing it. People arguing, loving, lying, promising. A whole world happening outside the glass bubble. He closed his eyes, and for the first time he felt fear. Not fear of failure, not fear of losing money, fear of listening. Because if silence protected him for decades, what could sound possibly destroy? The following morning, as he was being led to the operating room, the doctor leaned in and said something that made his heart race in a different way. A warning, almost whispered, as if it were a secret too dangerous to be spoken aloud. You may not be prepared for what you are about to hear. Prepared for what? Before I continue, tell me something. If you spent your whole life in silence and had the chance to hear everything at once, would you have the courage to press that button? Write in the comments below what you would do in his place. Because what happened next wasn't just the first sound. It was the beginning of something that no one, not even him, imagined. Current topic: the silence of the empire. He wasn't prepared for the noise of his own heart. The first sensation wasn't sound, it was impact. As if the world had decided to invade his head without asking permission. An electric crackle ran through the inside of his skull, followed by something he had never experienced before. A thin, sharp, constant noise. It didn't come from outside, it came from inside. The brain, after decades of being reorganized for silence, was being forced to reactivate dormant circuits. Neurons that had been repurposed were now receiving impulses again. It's like reconnecting an entire city after years in the dark. Some lights flicker, others burn out, others cause confusion. He opened his eyes. The room was white, cold, too brightly lit, and then came the first external sound. A beep, simple, short, metallic. But for him, it was like an explosion. The heart monitor beside the bed registered a rhythm that had always existed, but now it surged through the air and entered the newly awakened ears. Beep, beep, beep. Each repetition seemed louder than the last. The brain didn't know how to filter. It didn't know how to prioritize. Everything had the same intensity. He tried to take a deep breath. Error. His own breathing sounded like wind rushing through a tunnel. Harsh, loud, almost violent. The friction of the air in his nostrils seemed amplified 100-fold. The simple act of swallowing saliva produced a wet, crackling sound that made his eyes widen. This is where most people romanticize the moment. They imagine immediate tears, a soft soundtrack, someone holding their hand. But the neurological reality is less poetic. When the brain receives unexpected sensory stimuli, it activates the alert system. Amygdala, cortisol, hypervigilance. He felt no peace. He felt an intrusion. A nurse approached. Her lips moved as they had so many times before. Only this time, something else moved along with them. Are you listening to me? Her voice wasn't what he imagined voices to be like. It wasn't round nor soft. It was uneven, full of small variations, breaths, almost imperceptible vibrations. There was texture in her voice. There was life. He didn't answer immediately, because he was too busy listening to something even more disturbing, the rustling of the sheet fabric as he moved his hand, the microscopic friction of the fibers, the sound of his own blinking, a faint, damp touch. The world was not silent. The world was excessive. Hours later, already in his private hospital room, alone, he asked them to turn off the unnecessary machines. He needed less stimulation. He needed to organize that chaos. He sat up in bed, motionless, and then he noticed something that made his whole body shudder. A deep sound, rhythmic, internal, tum, tum, tum. It wasn't the monitor. It was him, your heart. He placed his hand on his chest as if needing confirmation. All his life he'd felt heartbeats. But hearing was different. There was vulnerability in that sound. Each beat was a reminder that he wasn't a machine. He wasn't an empire. He wasn't a stock market number. It was meat. It was finished. And for the first time, she cried upon hearing something that had always been there. Tears also had a sound, a warm glide across the skin, a breath that faltered midair, a small, involuntary sob that startled him with its own intensity. Have you ever stood on the edge of a new day, just as the sun begins to bleed light across the horizon, and felt a profound sense of something shifting within you? It's a quiet moment, almost imperceptible, but it holds the weight of a universe. This is the echo of awakening, a call from deep within your own being, a reminder that you are more than just your daily routines, your worries, and your to-do lists. We spend so much of our lives moving from one task to the next, our minds cluttered with the noise of the world. We're taught to build, to achieve, to strive for things outside of ourselves. But what if the greatest journey isn't outward, but inward? What if the most valuable treasure you could ever find is the one that's been waiting inside you all along? This journey isn't about escaping reality. It's about diving deeper into it, seeing it with new eyes. The first echo is often a whisper of discontent. It's that feeling that something is missing, even when you have everything you thought you wanted. It's a subtle ache, a longing for something more meaningful. This isn't a sign that you've failed. On the contrary, it's a sign that your soul is stirring. It's asking you to listen, to pay attention to the parts of yourself you've been ignoring. Maybe it's a creative passion you set aside, a relationship that needs mending, or simply a need for silence in a world that never stops talking. Think back to a time when you were a child. Remember that boundless curiosity? The world was a canvas of wonder. You'd lie on your back and find dragons in the clouds, have conversations with insects and believe in the impossible. Where did that person go? They didn't disappear. They were just buried under layers of expectation, fear, and the belief that we have to be realistic. The echo of awakening is a call to reconnect with that inner child, to reclaim your sense of wonder and play. It's about giving yourself permission to be fascinated by the world again, to ask why and what if. This path can feel lonely at times. When you start to question the status quo, when you start to live more authentically, not everyone will understand. You might feel like you're walking a path no one else can see. But you are never truly alone. The universe leaves clues for us everywhere. It's in the book that falls off a shelf right when you need its message. It's in the chance encounter with a stranger who says exactly what you need to hear. It's in the lyrics of a song that feel like they were written just for you. These are the synchronicities, the universe winking at you, letting you know you're on the right track. One of the most powerful steps in this awakening is embracing stillness. In a culture that glorifies being busy, choosing to be still is a radical act. Find a few minutes each day to simply sit. Close your eyes, breathe. Don't try to stop your thoughts. Just watch them float by like clouds. In that silence, you'll start to hear the real you. Your intuition will get louder, you'll begin to distinguish between the voice of your ego, which is driven by fear, and the voice of your soul, which is guided by love and wisdom. This practice isn't about achieving a state of perfect calm, it's about creating a space to meet yourself just as you are. Another key is forgiveness, not just forgiving others, but forgiving yourself. We all carry burdens from the past, mistakes we've made, words we wish we could take back. We replay these moments in our minds, letting them define who we are today. But you are not your past. The echo of awakening invites you to lay down that heavy weight. To forgive yourself is to acknowledge your humanity, to accept that you did the best you could with the knowledge you had at the time. It's an act of profound self-compassion that liberates you to move forward. As you awaken, your perception of the world changes. You start to see the interconnectedness of all things. The line between you and me begins to blur. You realize that the kindness you show to another is a kindness you show to yourself. The healing you offer to the world is a healing you receive in return. You see the divine spark not just in spiritual teachers or grand cathedrals, but in the smile of a cashier, the resilience of a weed growing through concrete, and the intricate patterns of a leaf. Life itself becomes a sacred text, and every moment is a verse. This doesn't mean life will be without challenges. The storms will still come. You will still face setbacks and heartache, but your relationship with these challenges will transform. Instead of seeing them as obstacles meant to break you, you'll see them as opportunities for growth, as the curriculum your soul has chosen for its own evolution. You'll learn to dance in the rain, to find strength in your vulnerability, and to trust that even in the darkest nights, the dawn is coming. This journey is not a destination. It's a continuous unfolding, a spiral dance of remembering and becoming. There is no final enlightenment, no finish line to cross. There are only more echoes, more layers to uncover, more love to experience. The point is not to become perfect. The point is to become whole. So listen. Listen for that quiet echo in the moments between your thoughts. It's the voice of your truest self, calling you home. It's a reminder that you are a magnificent, unfolding mystery, a unique expression of the universe itself. What is it whispering to you right now? What small step can you take today to honor that call? Maybe it's taking a walk in nature, writing in a journal, or calling someone you love. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single, intentional step. Take that step. The universe is waiting to meet you there. Thank you for sharing this time with me. If this message resonated with you, I'd be so grateful if you'd like, subscribe, and share it with someone who might need to hear it. Let's keep these echoes of awakening spreading. Until next time.